The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, Review.
Welcome, everyone, to another great Raw review. That's right, W2M brings you another one. We're so excited about this one. Hey, and don't forget, W2Mnet.com is the place where you go find all these great Raw reviews. I'm Gary Vaughan, and your host tonight is Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And Paul, this is an interesting episode of Raw because I'll be honest with you, I was starting to get concerned. I started thinking to myself, this could be a Ring of Honor episode once again where you get one match the entire show. So it didn't shake out that way. But.
You know, they had a battle plan. They made some history at the same time. And we're going to dive into that.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm excited about talking about it. It was just kind of freaked me out a little bit at first, but hey, it's cool. But hey, before we get on to the show, let's make sure everybody knows when I mention W2Mnet.com, I'm mentioning every single great thing that we have to offer as well. And that, of course, is everything over the W2M network, which is our show, W2M Wrestling in the Backs, of course, all the great review shows that we do every week, plus all the other great wrestling shows and all various sports, entertainment, and video games podcasts we have available too over there on that website. Go check them out. Also, give a big shout out to Formula1Mania.com and Last Word on ProWrestling.com. Both have great articles and stuff as well. And if you haven't done it already, don't forget to go subscribe, rate, and review over at Wrestling in the Backs or the W2M Network. So there you go, guys. Go check that stuff out. All right, Paul, let's get this thing kicked off, man.
Yeah, let's do it. They obviously spend a lot of time on one thing in particular, which we're going to break up into chunks. But first, we open with a moment of silence for the recent school shootings in Florida, which once again, hearts absolutely bleed for these people. Nobody should ever have to lose their child at school where they're supposed to be safe and learning and not having to worry about not ever seeing their kid again, or that kid having to worry about, never going home again.
Yeah, it's definitely sad, and my daughter even is concerned even just going into a restaurant now, and I hate that. It's scary.
It's awful, man.
It just happened to me tonight, and I was surprised that would even come out of her mouth. But anyway, yeah, it's terrible, and this also touched the world of wrestling. X-Pac lost a relative in this. Sorry, I can't remember her name, but X-Pac has lost a member too. So this touches all realms of people, even wrestling.
It's terrible. Best wishes to X-Pac too, who I'm sure is not at all worried about us, but still, the thought counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Roman Reigns gets some promo time, talking about the big gauntlet match tonight between himself, John Cena, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, The Miz, Elias, and of course, Mr. Braun Strowman, and it doesn't take a math whiz to figure out that is all of your competitors for the Elimination Chamber, because they just said F it and decided to throw Seth Rollins and Finn Balor in there. So somebody's sharing a pod, Gary. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. Or maybe they, I'm trying to think back in history. So is one person out of the pod and everybody else is in them, or everybody's in the pod and they just open two? I cannot remember how they do that.
So the Elimination Chamber starts with 2. And then you have 4 people in pods, right? So with the 7th, right. I assume you're just going to have a triple threat to start. That makes the most sense.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I didn't go ahead and have time to go back in history and watch all the Elimination Chambers. So, yeah, you're right. And it's just so weird how they're going to do this. But I kind of wish they would have paid it off in a different way. I really, really do. I wish they would just kept it traditional. But maybe they felt like it would be disservice to Seth Rollins or Finn Balor to have them not in that main event.
Yeah, so from Roman Reigns' promo, we waste no more time, Gary. We jump right into this gauntlet match, opening with the 2 Shield brothers themselves, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Lots of back and forth, pretty competitive as you would expect, and almost at about 20 minutes, Seth Rollins counters up with a roll up after stopping the spear with a knee strike and a super kick, and pins Roman Reigns clean as a sheet right in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, this is wild. I never expected that to happen, Paul. I really didn't. I was really fully expecting the Roman to go over here, move on to the next, and just Seth Rollins just take the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love the fact that, Roman Reigns really doesn't need this victory or whatever. It just really works for what we get later here. So I was really, really happy with it. I was not over the moon for the actual beginning. I think these two guys have some chemistry, but not a lot. I just don't know that I really love what they did here at the beginning. It was okay. Very decent, very average.
I think average probably about covers this, right? It's a lot of back and forth. I think it's a lot of sort of the stuff you would expect. And in hindsight, maybe that's what it needed to be, because this next part, John Cena is the third man out to go up against Seth Rollins here. And wow. These guys go out there and just crush it. Rollins going just full on everything he can dish out, and Cena trying once again to keep up with him and manages to find enough big moves to stay competitive for a long time in this, as these guys almost go 30 minutes. But it's not until about the 57-minute mark or so. Rollins hits a big ripcord knee, a big super kick, the blackout, pins John Cena. Clean as a sheet again. Two of the biggest superstars on Raw, gone by Seth Rollins.
And boy, that was a match. I really, really enjoyed this one. They both put a lot into it. I love the fact that they were playing off the fact that Seth Rollins just went through a battle, and yet we have John Cena coming in fresh and not being able to overcome what Seth Rollins was throwing at him at times. And then Seth Rollins starts taking the beating. You'd think it's going to be simply put, AA, down he goes. No, it's not the case. And I love the fact that we even have an attitude adjustment on John Cena himself in this match. Really, really happy to see that. I think they both put in some great effort. And it just really made me happy with the story that they were portraying here, that Seth Rollins was a survivor, and this mattered a lot to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so right after all of that amazing work happens between Seth Rollins and John Cena, you have Elias come out, and this one doesn't even go 10 minutes. This is basically 8 minutes, because you can tell Rollins is spent at this point. Rollins tries to hang in there. Elias just too fresh. He ends up hitting drift away on Seth to put him down for the count. Seth Rollins has now had the longest match in Raw history, Gary.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I really honestly never thought that would be the case. Seth Rollins would be the guy that break that. Not only that, I really never knew how long anyone's wrestled on Raw, to be honest with you. Did they actually tell us who was the original holder?
I haven't a clue, to be honest with you.
Well, you got to think about it, though. The Attitude Era, only 2-hour episodes. Most of Raw's history, besides, the recent history, is only 2 hours. So he almost wrestled an entire Raw in the Attitude Era.
That is true. Even pre-Attitude Era, when Raw was just an hour, right? Mm-hmm. Whole episode right there.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I'm happy for him, though. I'm really happy for him. The match with Elias was okay. Once again, it kind of dipped a little bit here, and it's not for the fault of either guy. I just think it got to the point where they're trying to put Elias in that situation where he's right there with Seth Rollins, but Seth Rollins is too spent, and Elias gets to move on, which they kind of want.
Right. I think that's exactly the point here. It's just, this is a storytelling break. Elias gets to do his stuff. Seth tries to compete, just not good enough here after beating basically the two biggest people in WWE right now, not counting Brock Lesnar. So, this brings out Finn Balor next to face off with Elias. This one gets a bit more time, maybe about 10, 11 minutes or so. Maybe a little more back and forth than I would care for, but as you just said, and as we've talked about many times, Elias is a star on the rise in WWE's eyes, and clearly in a lot of fans' eyes, because this guy is getting heat and cheers and all sorts of reactions and stuff like that for his singing. And Balor is still just sort of being Balor, but he ends up getting the win here. Sling blade, shotgun dropkick, coup de grace, all she wrote for Elias here.
Yeah, and for me, they did the right formula here. They gave this enough time to really make it matter. I think, both guys stay strong. This is very much, hey, we're going to protect both. In the end, though, you do need Finn Balor to win, especially if you want him to be credible. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not going to say it was my favorite part of the whole, sequence in this gauntlet, but I did enjoy it, and I think Finn really had some great energy involved in this match.
I think that really helped this along too, because Elias is, let's face, he's just not the most entertaining guy when it comes to the wrestling part to me yet. So he's got some work to do there, and I think Finn more than made up for that here.
Mm-hmm.
And then here comes another part to sort of set up story as The Miz bum rushes the ring. He's got the Miztourage in tow. They attack Balor. Well, actually, they distract him. Miz attacks him on the distraction and sort of is trying to basically just win as quick as he can at the start before he just starts grounding him down and doing all of his usual stuff. The Miztourage come into play again near the end. Balor takes care of him. And ends up getting distracted again before allowing The Miz to hit the skull-crushing finale, sending Balor packing. Easy way to set up an Intercontinental title feud with Miz and Finn, should they wish to move this forward.
Agreed, and I really enjoy watching these guys work together. They are fabulous, and the one thing I'll say about The Miz is he never disappoints. He always comes in here, and no matter who it is, he stays the same. He doesn't have to alter too much, at least with his style, everything that he does. Finn's a different guy compared to some of these other guys like Elias, Braun Strowman, even maybe to an extent Seth Rollins. So I love, though, that you have Miz come in here and handle his business just the way he always does. And Finn, taking care of business. He looks great here. I think the energy carries over from his match with Elias. It's just the numbers game is too much, and that's the story she wrote most times when you're facing the Miztourage.
Right. Yeah, that is standard playbook 101 Miz booking feud right here. So no surprises really there, but interesting that this is an actual direction they seem to be going in. And of course, last but not least, Gary, big old Braun Strowman. Miz and the Miztourage are next up to get these hands, and boy did he get them. Braun basically spends, I don't know, 5-6 minutes just absolutely murdering these guys. Big power slam finally whenever I guess he grows bored, and puts it away.
Yeah, he does, and like you said, this was simply put a Braun Strowman special.
Yeah.
Right? He comes in there all around,
okay.
Wins the match.
Yeah, you kind of faded out there for a minute. Sorry
about that. And, basically, it's just that. He just throws people around and gets that whole victory, and then we walk off, and then he comes back and does it again. Mm-hmm. So, I think, this was expected. None of us, I think, sitting at home watching this really expected Braun to lose against The Miz, even though I love the fact that the skull-crushing finale was hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I loved it. I thought that was a great little moment there, but it lasted a second. I love the victory here for Braun, but I'm going to be very sad to say this, but getting kind of tired a little bit of just the extended beatdowns. I don't know. It's kind of wearing on me a little bit, and I hate to say that.
This is what Braun does right now. This is how they're going to get him over. This is how they're going to keep him over. It's just letting him look absolutely unstoppable unless you got something big. Like your Brock Lesnar and you have an announce table, you toss it at him, or you have numbers or something to basically make it look like he has a reason to not be who he is. And to me, I think it's not, WWE very rarely commits this hard to a monster run for people. Even the Big Show, I don't think ever got this treatment. And he certainly had times where he looked pretty unbeatable early on, and especially during his times as world champion and stuff like that. But boy, oh boy, this is what Braun does. I can't say I don't enjoy it. I love these things, and his promo at the end, too, which basically promises the win, and him murdering Miz and the Miztourage once again. It's always fun. I just continue to enjoy this.
I trust me. I love Braun Strowman. I like the promo. I think sometimes I'm just like, boy, I kind of know what's happening here. I can probably fast forward and understand what happened. I hate to be that way.
No, I mean,
but
you're
I
not
just kind of feel that way. So I mean, I don't want people to think I hate Braun. I think Braun's great. I love what he does, and they're getting the point across for sure. It's just my own little tick, I guess.
I mean, we talk about this all the time. They do a lot of the same stuff all the time. It gets pretty predictable and sometimes a little boring. It's just going overboard on violence is hard to get bored about.
Guess so.
We get the big news here on Raw, which I guess we could very briefly talk about because I think we're going to talk about this on our main W2M episode this week.
Before we hop into that, and I want you, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Oh, you're
I'm
fine.
so sorry. I do want to say one thing about that whole gauntlet, though. I forgot to sum it up. I want to say this, though. I want to give my appreciation to WWE for making me care about matching up against Brock Lesnar and gaining the Universal title. I haven't felt this inspired about someone or these group of guys reaching for that title in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I have not, it has not felt this important. Sure, we felt like, okay, this guy is going to go for it. That's great. It never really felt super important. This feels so important. It feels like the Universal title is $1 billion. And that makes me so happy. I can't tell you. At the end of this match, I really felt like, man, I'm looking at this at a completely different perspective, new eyes. So I had to give them respect for that and say that. Sorry about that, Paul.
No, don't worry about it. I tend to agree with this sentiment. One, this is a very well done sort of thing. This match went 1 hour and 46 minutes, and I felt like they basically gave you something for every offering. It all had a point, and it moved forward very nicely. Seth Rollins looks phenomenal coming out of this. I think you have a lot of feuds brewing here too, which is also great. So you kept everything sort of building and percolating towards that big chamber match, and now it finally feels like we have a reason to care about it. Not only because, the winner goes to WrestleMania, faces the Universal Champion Brock Lesnar for whatever that does for anybody out there who's not sort of done with Brock Lesnar's current 322-day reign, I think, which is 58% of this title's lifespan is how long he's held the belt. That's incredible. And it's just, where it's going to go at Elimination Chamber, obviously, because I don't think the plan has changed at all. Getting to the end now, it seems much more exciting. What's going to spin out of all this after Elimination Chamber? Yeah.
I'm right there with you, and I think that's what's so fun and exciting about this. And I still feel like, it's the amazing part is they want to face Brock Lesnar. They want that moment, and it just is so prevalent throughout everybody. Even the little video packages, not video, actually just interviews with Renee Young that each of these guys did felt very fluid. I never felt like them breaking into the matchups with these, different, even whoever was in the ring really hurt. I think it worked great.
I agree. I think this is very, very well done. And not to mention, it's a great way to spend half your show. Or maybe two, a little more than 2/3 with the commercials. Jeff Jarrett going into WWE Hall of Fame. I'm sure we'll talk about this more on the main W2M episode. There's been a lot, and I mean a lot, of different opinions about whether Jeff Jarrett should be in this thing or not. I think you'd take a snapshot of his entire career, start to finish, probably deserves it. If we're looking at just specific points in time, it's really hard to point at something to be like, that's why he should go in there.
And people don't get to be privy to Paul and I's chats that we have with our W2M Net wrestling crew. Boy, was there lots of varying opinions. Was there a lot of back and forth on this issue. And I think each of us internally had this back and forth with ourselves. So given all that, I gotta say this. WWE has a reason for everything, right? And I think that the reasoning behind this may be for the fact that they're looking at a guy like Jeff Jarrett and saying he did have some things that were really important in the history of WWE. They may not have been the giant things in WWE, but the Intercontinental title was a big deal, should be a big deal now. And I think that they really wanted to pay homage to him for that. Plus, they own WCW. So anybody who says he went to WCW, well, guess what? It's now part of the family. You have to count it too. So I give him credit for that. Am I a big fan of this move? I can't really say I am. I don't hate it, but I just don't know how much I'm buying into Jeff Jarrett, the Hall of Famer. But there's been some other names out there in the past I've not really bought into either.
I had I think a very public sort of internal battle on our last W2M episode too, which you can go find out there on all of our usual platforms, about how sort of conflicted I was too, because there's so much good that he has done for the business. You know, he Impact Wrestling, or TNA, or Anthem, or whatever you want to call it at this point. He put that on the map. He put it together with his father. They turned it into something for a very long time. And of course it's had its ups and downs and all that, but he's a very big part of that success. You look at his championship resume, multiple time Intercontinental Champion, a US champion for WCW, a multiple time WCW World Champion, a multiple time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. The dude has the resume, I think, to make this feel like the right move. So big picture, absolutely. I think you try to find a moment that's like, man, this guy should be in the Hall of Fame. You might be looking for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. And, I got to say, they really did focus on a lot of the stuff he did, during his career with WWE and some of the other things that, like you said, he accomplished. So I think that's where they're coming from on this. But you're right. There's so many other things that he did in the wrestling business that he should get credit for, and he will, right?
Yeah.
So it's controversial, but you know what, Paul? I mean, controversy brings eyes. So maybe this is a moment where they're like, you can have as many matches as you want on the night of the Hall of Fame, but we're going to keep bringing it, even if you don't like the people we're putting in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people might be chanting TNA and all sorts of stuff, or Jarrett sucks, or you shouldn't be here, or whatever, and people will pay money to chant that stuff. That is well proven by this point.
Yep, you're right.
We go backstage to Asuka, who's with Renee Young, talking about her match with Nia Jax that's coming up at Elimination Chamber. She's not worried. She says Nia talks too much, and she's got to be worried about tapping out come Sunday. Here comes Nia, though. We have a big brawl. Jax ends up getting the better of Asuka. Samoan drop, couple leg drops. Nia stands tall. I get it, right? Nia needs to look like she can compete. She's got to look like a threat. This does that in some way.
Yep, I'm right there with you. It does everything it needs to do. Gives us a way that Nia looks great, and then next time we see these two in the ring, it's going to be probably Asuka standing tall. So it is what it is, right? The one thing I will say is I really question if they had an earpiece in Asuka's ear when they were having her cut the promo, because that was kind of a long promo for her to cut with someone who's not strong in the English language.
Very, very much on display here, too, that her English is still not all that strong yet. So,
yeah.
And interesting to note here, too, Ronda Rousey video package follows right after this. She's coming to Raw, Gary. She's signing that contract come Sunday. I mean, could you be any more obvious about what you're trying to do here?
And I'm hoping that the rumors are wrong. I really do. Not that I don't care about Ronda Rousey. I think Asuka could do a lot. Even if she wins, I think Ronda is going to be okay. She doesn't have to beat Asuka to be, something grand. Mm-hmm. But I know WWE is a different category when it comes to that. They're going to put, the biggest star over. I'll say this, a great video package. I mean, it's kind of an oxymoron to say that about WWE, but I really think, and I like the fact that they really sold you on Ronda Rousey through that video package if you weren't sold before.
They want you to be behind her. They want you to care. And they certainly are doing what they're best at to get you to that point with all the hype packages and stuff like that. So interesting to see what'll happen come Sunday with that whole situation. There's obviously still the big talks that they're trying to find somebody to tag with Ronda at WrestleMania, because I think that still is the plan, is the mixed tag match. So,
yeah. But one thing I will say is they had all the Charlotte, I think Stephanie, people like that talking, about Ronda Rousey, but yet these are the same people we saw tweet out that they were not happy about her showing up. So kind of funny. You say good things about her on this, but you were not happy on Twitter. It's kind of funny how they did that.
Well, that's WWE for you. You're gonna say this, you're gonna do it, and you can go home if you don't want to. And they're like, well, we want to be here.
Yep, that's very true.
After that, we have the Bar take on Titus Worldwide, which is now Titus and just Apollo, no Cruz, last names, we don't like them, says WWE. Get them up out of here. And this is basically nothing. 5 minutes, Titus Worldwide gets another win over the Bar, setting up a tag match that I'm sure nobody is really going to care all that much about come Sunday. The talent, however, is here to make you care if they decided to try to turn this into something.
I really don't know what to say about this, Paul. I really don't, because it's almost like they take a couple steps forward and a couple steps back on this whole thing. Mm-hmm. I think the Bar has done some great things. They've been a great tag team. I want Titus Worldwide to work out. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I kind of like the gimmick. I like what they sell me. But this has just not been something that's inspired me, and I could care less about this match going forward to Elimination Chamber. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but this didn't do much for me.
I agree. It's hard to get into something where there's very little flow. They're just sort of doing stuff for 5 minutes, and then suddenly Apollo rolls up Cesaro for the win, Mm-hmm. And they sort of, well, we used to have last names. Now we don't.
Yeah. I guess, the WWE universe has trouble saying two names. So they stick to one.
God, I know I have trouble saying two names, Gary.
I guess so. Hey, we call each other by the first name, so I guess that's why, huh?
Yeah, we don't use last names very often on this show.
Yeah, so there you go. I guess we're proving WWE right.
Yeah. We get this promo between Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy. We learn that they will be facing off one-on-one on Sunday. Once again, I feel like I would care so much more if we haven't seen them fight already very briefly on Raw and just basically sort of made it throwaway. It made people not care. I still don't think people are super into either person at this point, and WWE really has nobody to blame but themselves on that front, I think.
I totally agree. You know what would be better for this feud? Keep them off TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does not do them any favors at all. These guys are good at what they do. I'm not saying what they did on this episode of Raw was terrible, but it wasn't great. And it's the production over the actual, the actions of the guys themselves, right? The promos content, that they cut were fine. The content was fine. It's the production. Just not good. It's not getting anybody excited about the match. It's not. I'm sorry. You can argue with me all day long, people out there, if you really feel like that got you somewhere. It didn't get me anywhere, and I know it couldn't have got you anywhere.
It absolutely didn't. This is very, very flat, very boring. It's cool that they'll have the match, and I hope that they prove me wrong and just go out there and put on something worth talking about. I really do, so. Mm-hmm. And that brings us to our main event, 6-woman tag team action. Bayley teams up with Sasha Banks and Mickie James against Alexa Bliss, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville. This is interesting. There's not really... I think people were mostly spent after that gauntlet match because they really struggled to care about anything else on the show after that. And that proves the same here. Bliss doesn't necessarily seem excited to be tagging with Absolution, and Absolution only seems really concerned with working with each other to get the job done. Eventually, this leads to Bayley taking out Mandy Rose. You have Alexa Bliss slam Sasha into some buckles, but Banks ends up rolling out of that into the Banks statement and gets the champ to tap out about 15 minutes, almost 16 actually, and Absolution ends up in the post-match doing some beatdown on the faces, but here comes Mickie James, and she saves Alexa Bliss and work together to sort of fight back against Absolution. Looks like they're back to being buddies, Gary.
Yeah, they are. And, it's fine. I think it makes sense for what they're trying to do right now, correct? I mean, they're trying to put those two together that way that they have more an opportunity here, at least, the champ in the Elimination Chamber for the women. I think overall you got a pretty high energy match. I mean, Paul, they were really going. This was not, they sat in rest holds for a long time. They kind of played around outside the ring. No, they were going full force. This was very energetic, very action-packed. I appreciated this. I think it was what made the main event not terrible. I didn't exactly just love the match. It gave you what it needed to, I think, content-wise. But overall, I mean, it's just really, hey, let's get everybody out there and let's stall out till Sunday. And that's kind of what it felt.
I mean, it sets you up for Sunday. It gets you to somewhere interesting. I mean, Mickey is obviously in Alexa's corner again, which I'm fine with. Mickey James definitely needs something to sink her teeth into and try to turn into something more than just generic babyface lady who's still trying to make it. And this adds a little bit of interest to overall what I think has been built to be a pretty flat overall Elimination Chamber match for the ladies.
I agree. I can't really say I'm thrilled about it. And I want to be, of course, this is breaking history, Paul.
Jesus.
Yeah, but it's not breaking, any of the disinterest I have sometimes when it comes to this whole thing. But I'll say this: I think we've got something here because they got Sasha Banks coming into this looking really strong, and I think that's for a reason. So look forward to this whole, and I think we need to really keep our eyes on what Sasha's doing.
Yeah, I mean, Sasha Bailey's something to keep an eye on. Now you have Alexa and Mickey as the little alliance, and obviously Absolution. So lots of pairing off here that you could see going into Elimination Chamber. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked if we get the Bailey or the Sasha turn that has seemingly been a brewing for a while now. So that ends things for Raw.
Very true.
Gary, we just got to put a number on it. So what you want to do?
Alrighty, well, the number I think we should give this, in my personal opinion, for what I'm going to give it at least, I think this hovers around I'm going to say a 6.5. I think they gave you a really fun start to the show for the fact that they gave you this hour and 47-minute gauntlet. I think it worked. It was, I think, for the most part, better than worse. So I think about 75% of it I loved. The rest, 25% of it, I was just kind of ho-hum. I think that worked. I think you got, of course, the main event that gave you at least a picture of what's going to happen. Just not a lot of other fluff, though, so it made me pretty happy. I'm going 6.5.
I'm going to go a little higher than you. I'm going to say 7. I think the Gauntlet match is awesome. Might be something worth revisiting somewhere down the road, just because I really like the idea and their execution of it was great. And while the rest of the show is just sort of there, it is trying to add something. Everything does have a point. I greatly appreciate that. So I think this is a 7. I think it's a pretty solid 7.
Oh, fair enough. Well, there you go, guys. Well, hey, tell us what you think about this episode of Raw. Make sure you go subscribe, rate, and review. And also, hey, leave that feedback. Give us a comment. If you're listening on YouTube right now, hey, just put us that little comment. We'd love to read it. If wherever you're listening to us, hey, there's usually a comment section. Do that. And we'd love to see what you rated this episode of Raw. Don't forget to go subscribe, though, because once you do, you get all of our great content. Once you rate and review, that helps us, and it also helps yourself. And make sure you give a lot of props to 411mania.com and LastRollProWrestling.com. They support us. Let's go support them. They're really, really cool because of all the great content they have to offer. And W2Mnet.com has so much when it comes to podcasting and a lot of other great content for you to go check out. So please go do that. And until me and Paul and Sean get together on Wrestling to the Max's episode 287, part 1, we'll catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.
The previous podcast is a W2Mnet.com original podcast. For more great content like this, go to W2Mnet.com for the worlds of wrestling, video games, entertainment, and sports.